What a wonderful start. Make sure that you're not on the screen. And then when you are, make sure you're as small as possible. What's up, colleagues? I am glad that y'all could join me on another Wednesday solo show. I have been uploading mad clips from the Pam Bondi hearing. I have some thoughts on just her as a person. She is I don't know if I could compare her to anybody. I will say this, no matter how you feel about her, she is good at her job. She is cold and she is unfeeling and unflinchable. And we are going to talk about all of the things that were discussed. But first, we have to start off because I know you guys are all talking about it. You know, Sarah called me or texted me, and she was talking about the shocking, at least to me, passing of James Van Der Beek. Obviously, he passed away from colorectal cancer. And even though I was not the target demo of Dawson's Creek, I always say this: you know, a show is popular when you've never watched it, but you know what it is. And I have known for a long time, probably because of Varsity Blues, who James Van Der Beek was. But I know to a lot of people that are my age or maybe a little bit younger, James Van Der Beek was like one of their first crushes. And, you know, he just had an extremely successful career. And I feel dirty even talking about somebody's career at the time of their passing. I'm thinking about what's going on with his wife. He had young children. And that's what I kind of can't let go is just the feeling as a parent knowing that you're not going to be there to kind of shepherd your kids through those formative years. And I would just assume that there is an anger there for not being able to do that, and also just a sadness. But you know what? His kids know that their dad was effing dope. And the beautiful thing is they'll be able to go back and look at their dad over and over again as he was, and probably not as they'll remember him as he was getting sicker. So they get to. How many people can say that I got to see my parent like in their heyday? I think that if there's a silver lining to be taken, it's that I'm really thinking about his family. And I've said this to you guys before when it comes to celebrity passings or anybody, whether it's somebody that's killed at the hands of ICE or the police or somebody that just dies trying to take a selfie, on a mountain. I always think about after the story has passed through the news, and as shocking as this is, we'll move on. But James Van Der Beek's family will always have an empty seat at Thanksgiving. And I not only like think about them and pray for them right now in this moment, but just for them to have strength then, because it's those holidays, those moments when you just walk into a place and it's different for everybody, where you just go, man, dad would have loved this. It's just like it's always there. And I have that with some of my homeboys that have passed away, and things I know they would have laughed about. Things I always weirdly like when something crazy happens in the news, especially politically, I always think about telling my friend, it's so random, but my friend AC, he passed away from heart failure at 42 years old. So it's been some years now. It's been about 5 years. But I always just imagine telling him like all the things that have happened. Like, dude, there was like an airborne plague, and Donald Trump is the president, just all these kinds of things that that people in our lives, especially colleagues, if you guys are news junkies like me, so fellow news junkies. So those that aren't here anymore, you just know that this would be their heyday. And unfortunately, we're living it and living in it day to day. And say what you want, it's scary and a lot of times depressing and disheartening, but it's not boring. The president is not boring. This man generates content on a level. I was thinking about as I was trying to upload all these clips. Obviously, I want Wednesdays. I want Michael Dean to take the day off. Tori's got something much more pressing to handle on Wednesdays. Tori, I love you, girl. See you soon. Hung out with her yesterday. Babysat, dog sat for Tony Danza. Wait, let me see if I have any photos on my phone. Tony Danza, good news, colleagues, was adopted today. So shout out to Tori doing her job. This is her third foster dog that's been adopted, even though, and I'll tell you guys, it's to see Tori with these dogs in her natural element is just a beautiful thing. It's kind of, I've said it before and I'll say it again. There was a period of time not too long ago when I was worried about our girl. Straight up, I was. She was just kind of getting it from all sides, anniversaries of her mother passing, relationship dynamics changing. She lost her dogs that you couldn't be closer with. And Tori was on, if you watch boxing, sometimes when a fighter gets hit really hard, they won't be knocked out, but they'll take a knee and the ref will give what's called a standing 8 count. And Tori was there. And I was hoping she'd be able to fight through. And she sure enough did. And that's why I love her. Don't tell her I said this. Tell her I made fun of her the whole show. But in real life, Tori got her ass up and she continued to fight. She takes advice well. She is good with the self-care, good with the therapy, all that good stuff. And here she is fostering dogs. The only issue is, and I told her, yesterday might have been a dog that you might have wanted to keep. We, Sar and I were both like, should she have adopted this dog? And then when she came to pick it up, she was like, I think I should have adopted. The Tony Danza was awesome. But he's in a good home, and there's a new dog that's ready to be taken care of. So Tori, I know, will step up. All right, y'all, let's get into this. Make sure to smash that like button. Tell your friends to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. But boy, do we got a lot of stuff to discuss today. All right, let's start off with the Pam Bondi hearings. I have a couple of clips here that I wanted to show you guys. So let's get into the first one. I'm just praying that there's sound. Let's take a look at this first one. It's an exchange between Ted Lieu, Congressman Ted Lieu, I believe of California, and Pam Bondi.
That's why I find it absolutely despicable that you sought to protect Epstein's clients, like former Prince Andrew. Last July, you closed the case on Epstein's abusers. The July 2025 memo from your Department of Justice stated, quote, "We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties." These two photos, please put the photos back up. These two photos staring you in the face are evidence of a crime and more than enough evidence to predicate an investigation against former Prince Andrew. So I ask you, Attorney General Pam Bondi, why did you shut down this investigation last July, and why have you not prosecuted former Prince Andrew?
I don't believe you asked Merrick Garland these questions when he was Attorney General and set before.
I agree with you.
You twice.
I've been claiming my time. I agree with you. I agree with you. During the Biden administration, I called for people looking at Epstein files. Merrick Garland dropped the ball, as did Attorney General Bill Barr, as did Alex Acosta, a whole string of failures. But you are in charge. You have the power to change things, to hold these men accountable, and you're doing the opposite. You're protecting them. So I want to move on to another.
All right. That was the first of 3 that I have to show you guys. A couple of things that stood out to me is we kind of, Bondi tipped her hand the last time she testified. Do you guys remember? She kind of caught, I believe, the Democratic, senators and Congress people off guard, because remember what they always say about the Republican strategy is to deny and then attack. And that's what she did the first time. She would say, they would be like, well, what's up with the release of the Epstein files? You said that they were on your desk and then you said you didn't have them. She'd be like, what's up with your wife dating your pastor? What's up with that? She lives for moments like this. There's the next clip that we're going to show. We're going to talk about this one a little bit more. You'll see that, like, as Thomas Massey is talking to her, and they're Epstein survivors in the room with them, a number of them. She's unmoved. She doesn't really look at the photos that are up there. She's talking to a woman behind her. She's flipping pages. She is, I would say, it's further than being numb towards these victims. She is unmoved and unmotivated to feel any type Oh, yes, I see Jasmine ate her lunch. We will get to that. Big trust. Um, but in terms of, when we talk about why she's doing this and why she, um, feels so cold and so jaded and so driven and strident to close these cases, it's because she's performing for an audience of one. And there's something that Donald Trump does to not all the people that pass before him. Some people, pass through his orbit and come out the other side like there's been a lot of people that were, kind of tried to be pro-Trump and then they didn't, and then they were, and then they were kind of on the outs. But there's certain people that have it, what seems to be, can only be described, and this is a term that can be applied to any gender, a a daddy child relationship with him. You just feel like every time, as soon as this was over, she calls and she goes, "Did you watch? Did I do good?" Not thinking for a second, like as she's starting her car and leaving the garage, like, wow, why did I close those cases? There was substantial, and I think in a bipartisan, in a world where we are very divided, 7 million documents is enough to maybe open an investigation. Maybe, I don't know. But the fact that she closed these down so quickly, we also have to remember that this isn't her first rodeo. Remember Florida? Remember Epstein 1.0, at least 1.0 to our knowledge? Who was handling that sitch down there? That would be one Mrs. Pam Bondi. And because she handled that so well, look who's the attorney general now. Look who's the Republican Senate Majority Leader in there, Jim Jordan, who also had a sex scandal. Let me not use the word that's not the right, a scandal at Ohio State that was very similar to the one that happened in Michigan State. This was 7 years ago. His scandal was where 5 Ohio State wrestlers accused him of knowing that the team doctor was violating them and assaulting them during what were supposed to be medical examinations, and he turned a blind eye. And what have we been saying since day one? They don't care if you have Harvard as the #1 bullet point on your resume. They don't care if you have first in my class at Yale Law School, headed my own firm with glass windows in downtown LA. They don't care. They care if you can keep your mouth shut. What did Pam Bondi do? She kept her mouth shut, shut that Epstein case down. What did Jim Jordan do? He kept his mouth shut, shut down that Ohio State situation. And where is he? Alex Acosta, who gave that famous, infamous sweetheart deal to Epstein the first time. I believe he was Trump's labor secretary in Trump 1.0. What did he do in Florida? He gave the sweetheart deal. He shut that down and he got a seat at the table. So just understand that everybody that hoves through our field of vision throughout this administration, no matter how long it will go, they have shown loyalty, not in the form of praising you online or retweeting you on X. Anybody can do that. They need to know that when the pressure is on, will you fold? What did they say in Goodfellas? I don't know. He might fold under questioning. They need to see that you can keep your mouth shut, because everybody that's involved in this administration, up and down the ladder, has some form of abuse or scandal that they have, depending on how you define successfully, covered up or tamped down. And that is the way that you maintain your standing with this situation. So, with that said, let's move on. And also, are we done with why isn't she taking the task about, you decided to not investigate or close the Prince Andrew, formerly Prince Andrew scandal? Walk us through that. Walk us through that. That's not adversary. That's not adversarial. And that's one of you'll see the tactic that Jasmine Crockett adopts, which I think is probably the best one to deal with Pam Bondi and her ilk. But if you are going to question Pam Bondi, I think the way that you should do it is have her walk through her thinking, because when something is rightfully comes her way that's got heat and anger and vitriol behind it because of the intense moral decay that is being spoken upon, whether it's the exposure of victims whose names and addresses and pictures should have been redacted, but were not. And we'll get to that in the next one. That gives her a chance to do what we talked about when we first started talking about Pam Bondi. And that was a chance for her to go, well, before you get mad at me, why didn't you do that during Obama's first term? Why didn't you ask it? I would just be like, hey, Pam, walk me through how you had all of these documents, how you had Prince Andrew, his face, you had testimony, you had sworn testimony from the victims themselves. Why did you not pursue this? And then I would sit back and say, the floor is yours. And I would like to see how she'd handle that. Probably in the same way that she handles all the questions, but it'd be nice to see her trying to defend this. All right, let's get to the next one. Let's see how Thomas Massie, who has become a hero for the people, him and Ro Khanna, Thomas Massie and him, they ain't playing around. All right, let's check this out.
From the DOJ production that are emblematic of the massive failure of the DOJ to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. To my right is an email that was sent by the victims' lawyers to the DOJ. It was a list of names not to redact, a list of names not to release. What did the DOJ do with this email? They released this email in the document production. Literally the worst thing you could do to the survivors, you did. And they're getting phone calls. A lot of these people didn't want to be known. And we know you touched the document because you redacted one name and you redacted the lawyer's name, but you left the survivor's name there. The next document I want to show you, that was in the title, the victims' survivors' names, all right? The title of this one is Child Sex Trafficking, Co-Conspirators, fully redacted. And by the way, I'm going to unredact them here. Les Wexner is in this. Now, your deputy attorney general said, oh, well, he appears hundreds of times in the files, but he doesn't appear in this file until I forced you to release it, where he's listed as a co-conspirator, not to tax evasion, but to child sex trafficking, not to prostitution, not to money laundering, child sex trafficking.
Yeah. Child sex trafficking. He's listed hundreds of times, and they chose not to pursue that. And not only not to pursue that, but to redact his name until Massie called that to their attention, and then they unredacted Les Wexner's name, even though everybody knew what was going on at that point. The anger that you could feel from him was because he knows what the victims whose names were purposely, as he stated, not redacted. And I love that he threw that caveat in because it took away a fundamental way for them to defend themselves. They're like, we got 7 million pages. I'm sorry, we didn't get to all of them. So we were just kind of randomly redacting. First of all, that'd be a terrible defense, but at least that's something where a lot of people could say, well, they did have a lot of stuff to go through. But when they said that they redacted the lawyer's name so that the lawyer is unharmed, then you already know what's up. They're like, we know you touched it because you touched it for this guy, and you seemingly, allegedly, purposefully left this victim's name unredacted. I hope, if nothing else, at the end of all of this, if there is ever a real, this isn't a sitcom where there's going to be a nice bow at the end of the 30 minutes and they'll be like, and that's the end of the Epstein files. I don't know if this will ever end. It just seems to be ongoing and ever reaching. But I would like for there to be a period of time where the country at least can come together and say, we will never ask the question, will something happen? Why didn't you come forward? Because of this. And this is at the highest level. This isn't some half-drunk sheriff, in a county that's got 4 other deputies underneath him, and he's half drunk on bourbon. He's like, I didn't get to that. That's one thing. This is the Attorney General for the United States of America. This is the kind of position in which, in normal cases, a lot of times you would have law libraries named after you, maybe a statue of you somewhere, maybe a bust of you somewhere. And at the highest level, even with not even bright lights, theater-sized spotlights on you and your behavior, because it's been super sus. So sus, I have to play this.
That's super sus. Sus.
Your behavior has been so sus that everybody has their eyes on every single thing that you're doing, and you still purposely do something like this. So that tells victims, especially the victims of Epstein or the monsters closely associated with him, come forward, and clearly you're going to get no protection. And when Massey said they've been receiving phone calls, you know what? I receive phone calls, not from this show. I receive phone calls from voter polls. You get phone calls. Would you like to change your insurance carrier? These aren't phone calls like that. The phone calls that they're receiving, these people that wanted to purposely remain anonymous because they are adults now with children of their own. They're married. Maybe they haven't told their spouse. Maybe they haven't told their family. Maybe they haven't worked through this themselves to even tell those people. And now their names, their phone numbers, and their addresses are for public consumption, for reserved for only our craziest. Think about how many death threats a college football kicker, a 19-year-old kid, gets after he misses a kick in the Sugar Bowl. Thousands. And that's for missing a kick. They said Hank Aaron, according to the FBI, got the most recorded death threats ever when he was about to break Babe Ruth's record. That's, I'm sure, a record he wished he didn't have. We're talking about sports and death threats. Now make it the creme de la creme of the MAGA crazy calling you. I watched a documentary about, and I wish I could remember the name, but there are people that believe that all of the shootings that have occurred throughout the last 10 years have been hoaxes. So not only do they just think that, which is gross, but their opinion, they go to the places where it's actually happened. So they'll show up. Remember that there was that shooting at that church in Texas? It was years ago. They believe that that was a hoax. Obviously, Sandy Hook that's like high school for all MAGA crazy conspiracy theorists, where, that's where Alex Jones got them all jumbled up and riled up in there, and then got hit with that lawsuit. Haven't heard as much from him. But yes, those people who had their children killed at school, subsequent to that, the heartache would be unbearable and something I can't really even think about or fathom. But on top of that heartache, those parents were then harassed for 10 years. Many of them had to move 2 and 3 times because these people are so crazy that not only are they thinking that the shootings were a hoax, and I don't understand really what are they saying, that their kids never existed, or their kids were actors that really leaned into the role and played this role for 6 years, all of them together, to then bow out of society? Do they think that these proposed actors still live somewhere else? Because I remember hearing similar conspiracies, and maybe this was ground zero for the crazies. Remember when 9/11 happened, and that was really when I first saw kind of the underground mainstreaming of conspiracy theories, because there was that movie called Loose Change, And a lot of people, a lot of online was starting to get big around that time. And that was when a lot of people passed that around that 9/11 was an inside job. And a lot of the conspiracy theories there were that the people on like flight 93 and I forgot what the other one, I want to say flight 11, I think it was, that those people were actors as well. But I always wondered in a weird, sick way, because it's ridiculous. I just want to ask them again, walk me through that. Then where are they now? Anyway, we've just dedicated enough time to those monsters, but just like they exposed these women whose names should have been redacted to those people, to the people that literally get in the car with their wife and drive to a place where a mass murder has taken place and browbeat and attack the people there, calling the pastors at this church actors and liars. And so I don't know. I just think that that's done on purpose. And I think in a weird, sick, disgusting way, if those victims if those women whose names should have been redacted but are harassed and it becomes public, that's almost PR for this DOJ to say, we're not saying anything, but do you see what happens when you come forward? Sometimes we forget to go oopsie with the pen and you have a lifetime of harassment. And guess what? The people you would have to get to protect you from said harassment is this woman. So I think we spent enough time. Let's get to our headliner because sis said a lot. Let's hear from Jasmine Crockett.
Because this witness has revealed that she has no intentions of answering questions, but instead I'm going to ask some very basic questions really quickly of my colleague, Becca Ballant, if she will answer right or wrong, raping children.
Wrong.
Right or wrong, killing random citizens.
Definitely wrong.
Right or wrong, enriching yourself as the sitting president of the United States.
Definitely wrong.
Okay, thank you, because I probably never would have got that with our witness. Our witness who somehow is a lawyer but does not understand how it works with witnesses. I'm not really sure what law school she went to and what all tried, but typically when you come into a space and somebody's a witness, then they sit there and they answer questions instead of asking questions. And then we also have this objection that we use as lawyers called non-responsive when a witness fails to actually answer the question. But nevertheless, let me address the survivors because that's exactly who they are. They are not victims, they are survivors. Let me say thank you for having more courage and moral clarity in your pinky fingers than the entire Department of Justice. We are currently the laughing stock of the world, partially because of the failed leadership within the DOJ as we see kings and queens falling everywhere around the world. But we don't know the basics of right and wrong in this country because it's not about partisanship. And that's why I applaud Thomas Massie, because he's the only person on the Republican side that has a backbone and knows how to stand up to corruption. But nevertheless, let me keep going. My Democratic colleagues have been attacked this entire committee hearing. They have been lied on. And frankly, the American people weren't looking for that. They were looking for answers about the corruption that they see coming from this administration. In the written testimony of this witness, of this particular witness, she stated that when she took office, she had two main goals. The first was to end the weaponization of justice, and second, to return the department to its core mission. Not only have you lied about both, you've intentionally done the exact opposite. You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting journalists than you are prosecuting pedophiles and creeps. In fact, your boss, the President of the United States, stated that this administration, quote, took the freedom of speech away. And at your direction, DOJ has arrested Don Lemon and Georgia Fort. And I might add that y'all actually had a judge that rejected y'all for trying to arrest Don Lemon before, just like the grand jury rejected y'all as it relates to Senator Kelly, just like a grand jury rejected y'all as it relates to Senator Slotkin, just like the case against Tish James was dismissed and the case against Mr. Comey was dismissed. I completely don't get how it is that you're sitting at the top of DOJ because you don't seem to be good at your job. You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting these journalists. In fact, we know after Georgia Fort and Don Lemon were arrested, we know that there were homes of journalists that were raided. We know that threatened prosecution against students protesting your actions and forced tech companies to remove apps used to track ISIS activities. But let's circle back to you protecting pedophiles and creeps, because I want to talk about the president and his possible involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I don't know what the president might have done with Jeffrey Epstein, but unlike this administration, I believe that facts matter. So let's talk about the facts. Fact number one, Donald Trump is one of the most named people in the Epstein files. At least 5,000 files contained more than 38,000 references to Trump, his wife, or Mar-a-Lago. Fact number two, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell made young girls available to Trump on multiple occasions. For example, according to this file, Ghislaine Maxwell presented a young girl to President Trump who spent more than 20 minutes apparently flirting with her. Here's another example. This shows notes from FBI investigators that describe Jeffrey Epstein transporting a victim to Mar-a-Lago to meet with President Trump, where he bragged to Trump that, quote, "this is a good one." Now, I'm not saying that the president is a pedophile, but there is a lot of evidence in these files that suggests that he's very close friends with a lot of men who are pedophiles. What's crazy about all of this is just that this is a big cover-up. And this administration is engaged in it. In fact, this administration is complicit. But there are numerous others, like how the DOJ is attempting to obstruct justice in the investigation of the rogue agents who have murdered American citizens, or how the DOJ seized voter data from Fulton County in an attempt to steal the 2026 midterm elections, or how federal agents have Tom Homan on tape accepting a bribe and your agency killed the investigation, or how your agency is ready to give the president a $230 million payday, which is unconstitutional. The Constitution is clear. The president shall not receive any payment except his salary while in office. The fact of the matter is that you will be remembered as one of the worst attorney generals in history. An attorney general who has prioritized obstruction over justice, corruption over the law, fealty to the president over loyalty to the Constitution. And Mr. Chairman, I will yield.
I think we'll all yield, Jasmine. Oh, remember yesterday when I was joking around that there needs to be just a woman of color who has caught many, many stupid men trying to lie to them to conduct these hearings. And as if the heavens opened up, Jasmine Crockett descended, because that's what it sounds like. And first of all, shout out to Congressman Lou, he was serious when he said that. I've followed this for years now, which is sad and depressing. That this has been going on that long. He has been one of the few outspoken voices on this, even in his own party, before this was kind of on everybody's lips in the country. And Thomas Massey, him along with Ro Khanna, I mean, Thomas Massey, he's the only Republican, which, like I said, I don't know how long this regime is going to go. May go all 4 years. I don't see how it could, because the country right now, I feel like, and I don't know if you guys feel this way, I feel like we're driving around with the emergency brake on. I feel like nobody can move forward because we don't know what we're doing or what our goals are or what we are anymore. And what I mean by that is the reason that cop shows, even though we know that they're kind of farcical, have been so popular throughout our lives, especially the kind of like the ones that are a little bit more gritty. I'm going to go real old school for the 48-year-olds and up, starting with Hill Street Blues, on up through just the years of Law and Order and the spinoffs, SVU, all that, The Shield. All of those shows are popular because we all want to feel, even though we know it's probably not true, that out there are people that still care about the law and will still do something if something happens to us or somebody that we love. We've paid taxes our entire lives for that. Our parents, our grandparents have paid into this system. They're not doing this as an effing favor for us. This is what we pay for. When we pay for the fire department, I never see them fail to show up. They even show up when your cat accidentally hits the fire alarm with its back paw. They'll be there. There's never an issue with the fire department. But when it comes, the police will come, especially after being, chastised for years for failing to show up at a proper amount of time in black neighborhoods. Remember, Flavor Flav had that song 911 is a joke. Where'd you think that came from? Nowhere. He just was like, let me make a random song. It was because it was an issue in black communities. They've worked to absolve that. Police have, in certain communities, worked to rebuild the frayed bond between the community and the police that were supposed to take care of said community. So the police have done some work. They added body cameras. They took Derek Chauvin murdering a man on television, but there are not as many black men being killed, at least on camera. I can only speak from my experience as somebody that has been assaulted by the police, and I've spoken about that before. It's not a badge of honor. It's just how my life has gone and how a lot of other people of color's life have gone. They have at least taken steps to try and reaffirm their connection with the community that they are supposed to be policing. Our Justice Department, however, has not. We still see outlandish sentencing for, think about right now, as we do this show, friends from work, tell a friend, subscribe. How many people are in jail right now as we do this show for marijuana? Right now. None of the people that we have ever talked about in the Epstein files is in jail except for one woman. The FBI director told the Senate that from what he's deduced, Jeffrey Epstein trafficked girls and women to himself. I need us to pause and really understand the level of bullshit. That is just, imagine if you are caught and you have 25 garbage bags of meth. I don't know how meth is stored. Maybe the container store. And your home is raided and the cops find 25 of those plastic containers full of meth in your possession. Your lawyer goes to court and says, hold on, I got this. Your Honor, my client was selling those drugs to himself. Imagine how that would go over. Imagine. That is what the head of our FBI, who looks like he hit his head on a pool table when he was young. He looks so crazy. It's hard to, I don't want to talk about people's looks, but it's hard to, I'm looking at this man and he's so unserious and the words coming out of his mouth are so unserious. And then you get to Pam Bondi and she says the files are on my desk. We're like, cool. And then they did the whole dog and pony show. Remember, they let all those right-wing influencers go to the White House and they all had those white binders that you get from Office Depot when you're like, I'm not effing around with this report. I got a hole puncher, homie. I'm putting the papers so you can flip. Oh, do I need to have tabs in here? Yes. Child molester, tab. Democrat, they had the whole binder, had a little cutout, like, oh, where they paraded them like, yo, we're about to go through these Epstein files and we'll report back right-wing followers of my podcast. And guess what they reported back? That those files were all in the public domain and they learned nothing. Pam Bondi was like, my bad, dog. Let me get to the real ones. They released a couple pictures of some chairs, Woody Allen, and then I think there was just there's just a picture of a large mirror and Epstein's creepy desk. And they were like, no, well, that's not enough. Then they found 3.5 million files. And through all of this, other countries, as was referenced by Representative Crockett, have done major things. Tori said it yesterday on the show, but, Prince Andrew losing his titles, for as much as people are like, oh, who cares? That's a big deal over there. We don't have royalty over here except for King LeBron James, Cavs 2016. We don't have royalty over here, but they do. And that's as prestigious as you could possibly get, and to remove those titles and to keep pushing, like Tori said, Prince William is now going to be questioning basically whatever the equivalent of Prince Andrew's Secret Service to see what they knew, to see who else was connected. They're doing things. They're going to have trials. And you know what we have over here? We have this. We have Pam Bondi asking, and I thought Jasmine Crockett handled this perfectly, because she started out by saying, I'm not going to give you the pleasure of trying to attack me. So I'm not going to ask you questions, because clearly you're not here to answer questions. You are here to attack. That is the strategy that you're clearly the only strategy you've ever really tried. And I'm not here for that. And what she said, and I don't know if you guys took it as this, she took a little dig at old cover-up Jim Jordan over there, because she said normally, and I wrote it down, she said normally a witness that does this, because it's not the first time that there's a witness that's like been like, I'm going to go on the offensive. It's called a non-responsive witness, and they can ask the person mediating said hearing or questioning to redirect the witness to answer the questions, because other than that, what would compel them to possibly incriminate themselves? And I wonder if Jim Jordan didn't jump in because he's been trained to squash things like this. So you notice at the end of the Pam Bondi, he was doing like, that's how I used to know when I taught middle school, my students were bored when one would be like this. I'd be like, I got to change this lesson plan up. These kids are bored as F. So she just went on a rant, and what she did was just list the facts. There's certain times where you need to convince a jury. A lot of especially jury trials that do go to trial, it's about getting an attorney to tell the best story. If you think about the OJ trial, we all have our thoughts on whether he was guilty or not. Wow. But Johnny Cochran told a story that was much more compelling than Marsha Clark or Christopher Darden. Johnny Cochran was like, here you have a black man in this country trying to do right. He's accused of killing this woman, which who knows? But who shows up to get the glove? The police equivalent of the Grand Wizard of the KKK. Now he's got the evidence. Does that sound right, y'all? And then they put Mark Furman on the stand. I can remember his name that quickly. Mark Furman on the stand. I've never used the N-word. And then they were like, click on the tape, and Mark Furman using the N-word over and over and over again at the office. Jesus. So Johnny Cochran eventually creates a story that this is a black man just trying to get a shot. He's just lost his wife. He's got the KKK trying to take him down. And, on top of everything, Christopher Darden, he's not a real black man like me. Come on, y'all. Look at me. Look at these two people representing the establishment trying to take down a beautiful black hero. And on top of that, the glove don't fit. And the jury said acquit because he told the story that was necessary to be told because OJ was guilty as F. That's not the case here. And I think Representative Crockett knew it. She was like, I don't need to put on a dog and pony show for y'all. So I'm just going to list the facts, but I will use the word y'all. If you ever want to get on my good side, if you ever want to speak to the people, use y'all. Because for as informal as it may seem in a committee hearing like this, Bondi is speaking to a party of one, Donald Trump, but the people asking the questions are speaking to us. And when you say y'all, I don't look at that as you being unprofessional. I look at you so relaxed in what you're doing that you're able to talk to me one-on-one through the TV or through whatever medium I'm consuming this. And also, side note, if you want to get a big tip from me as somebody waiting, taking care of me at a restaurant, call me honey. Okay, any diner that I go through and you go, I'll be right back with that, honey. Look, it's like you melt me. I love it. I like to be talked to normal. You see how I am. I remember one of the best compliments I ever got I hung up the phone one time, and one of my friends was like, "Who was that?" And I was like, "That was my daughter." And they were like, "You talked to her like she's your friend." And that's how I talk to people. I hope it comes through when I talk to you guys, colleagues, because we've been together for hours and hours, and it adds up days and days and weeks and years. So we're together. So y'all can't go nowhere. Yeah, I'm smoothing and I'm kind of going into creepy boyfriend mode. Deal with it. You're not going anywhere. But seriously, I do like the way that she had an informal way and a very palatable way for the American public to, ingest a lot of things that should not and hopefully will never be palatable for us, but nonetheless, we need to hear it. And she listed out the run of conspiracies. And as she was going, didn't it kind of seem like she was just reading the episode titles of shows that we've done here on Friends from Work, whether it was the Don Lemon, Georgia Fort situation where Don Lemon, at first they were going to charge him under the Ku Klux Klan Act, which was just, you just know how much joy that they got for being able to do that. But then they just, I think they tried to get him as a domestic inciter, domestic terrorist for interviewing an ICE pastor in a church while service was going on. We then saw inside Georgia Fort, who's also she was one of the heads of the NABJ, a conference that Erica and I spoke at, one of the true honors of my career. I was on a panel with Anthony Anderson and Sonny Hostin. And I remember just being up here like, why am I up here? Do you guys need me to bring you water? But it was one of the best times in my life. So when I saw her in her living room and she turns her camera on and she says, "There's men at the door. My kids have been," and then she pauses and she says, "affected." Those kids weren't affected. That was her trying to quell the situation probably within herself. And it seems like her kids were in an earshot. Her kids were permanently scarred and damaged. Can you imagine? Your kid literally thinks that the boogeyman is in the closet. What if they were really outside? What if they were real and there was a bunch of them and you knew they were coming in the house and you knew there was nothing you could do? You knew once they're in that house, who knows what they're going to do to your child? Who knows what they're going to say to your daughter? Who knows who knows if they're going to take them to and where they're going to take them? And she was as composed of a human being that I've ever seen. And we saw her in her moment of peril before she was arrested. There was another journalist that was arrested that then had her picture. She walked, when they went to work to arrest her, she walked out shoulders broad, like unaffected, like, is this all y'all got? And they used AI to make her wailing as a Black woman, saying, "This is what happened." But same police officer, but her face was clearly changed. So they're spending taxpayer money locking them up. We spent taxpayer money having 5-year-old Liam in a detention center. That was your tax dollars at work. That's our tax dollars at work, with the National Guards cleaning up Snickers wrappers in the national parks. That's our tax dollars. But no tax dollars. Oh, and there were tax dollars that we paid for to have Ghislaine Maxwell transferred to a minimum security prison where she is allowed a therapy puppy and 5-star meals, as well as mental health treatment and a host of other things I don't got. Can I go to that prison this weekend to relax? So she did a great job of laying that out and saying, here's what they've done. And it kind of circles back to what I was talking about with the law and order. If we don't, and it appears that we won't, unless there is a blue tsunami in these midterms and then in 2028, if we don't have any resolution with this Epstein thing, if it just kind of goes away, which I guess maybe eventually everything will, because if Trump is able to somehow alter the votes that we all know are coming at the midterms, even if he's allowed to continue on, because there have not been Democrats allowed in to hold them to account, how do we move on? What are we as a country? And I think that was really Jasmine Crockett's entire kind of overarching theme is I cannot talk to this puppet of the president that is sent here to be adversarial and not ask questions. But really, I feel like she was compelling me to ask questions of this government because I did a podcast with my friend Forrest Shaw last night. Make sure to check it out. It's called I've Got a Problem. It's about him talking about openly and honestly about his gambling addiction. So make sure to check that out. He'll be on the show with us soon. But what I was saying to Forrest is just like, I wonder just where we're going to go as a country. And he was saying he doesn't know, and neither do I. Other things that she brought up was Tom Homan, who was brought in as like the replacement for Greg Bovino, Greg Bovino, the that sawed-off Nazi that was initially had boots on the ground in Minneapolis. Remember, Tom Homan was caught on camera accepting a bribe from an FBI agent, and Pam Bondi shut that down. So what is this? If we're not going to go after people that are so clearly guilty that they're on camera, and we're going to go after journalists, when are they going to come after you? So I think that is what sticks with me most when it comes to just the testimony that we saw today. I wonder, what are you guys thinking in terms of what this is going to look like moving forward? Because right now, I keep holding myself back from being hopeful, but at the same time, reports have come out today that electors are already on guard for election tampering, both foreign and domestic. I think we've all known that there have been Russian bots and things trying to run interference with our elections. And let's be honest, the United States has interfered with some elections overseas throughout our short 250-year history, but also foreign and domestic. Did you ever think you'd hear that? Like, we have to be on guard for our FBI and the KGB? This is what we're up against. And all I know is that no matter what we're dealing with, you guys can be sure that we here at Friends from Work will be here with you. I did want to get to briefly, did you guys see that after Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie went and viewed the Epstein files, they're saying that Trump's name appears more than 1 million times in there? I don't know how we move on from that. I don't know how we move on from this, but I do know that we will do it together. So, colleagues, I appreciate you guys tuning in on a fun Al Solo Wednesday. Me and Tori will be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Until then, you guys be safe. I truly appreciate you guys. And please remember, tell a friend, and life is good. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Oh, yeah. And y'all need to come up with an exit so I don't fumble it like that. Love you.